Welcome to today's episode of Eat This, Drink That, ETDT official with food connoisseur Ali Khan and wine and beverage specialist Steve Greer. We are kicking off episode number 9. And Ali, what is your Eat This for today?
First, I think this might just give you a nice little throw. This is how I want to open. Ready? Hey guys! Because I know that gets you. Earlier before he started, Ryan's like, oh, I don't want to start it with that. That's so cheesy. So you embrace it. Embrace it like a 90s sitcom. So here's the thing. Kind of a surprise. We already know what we're going to talk about because we started just chewing the fat. And this is a huge moment that's happening right now. Look, today is June 5th, 2021, as we are recording this. And restaurants and bars and all that good stuff people are going out. Things are changing. Steve Greer called it the Great Reopening. So I'm starting this off by starting you off, Steve, because you literally are working in the hospitality industry on the supply side. So, and this all came up because he goes, guys, I'm super, super busy because everybody's coming back. Greer, what's going on right now? Tell us what's real.
So, I mean, obviously, this is not the type of show where we even want to bring up, anything outside of eating better, drinking better. But now that we are through the backside of what all of us just endured for a year, the pandemic, most of us are vaccinated. I'm double vaxxed. I believe in science. I'm going to say it. I am still in the hospitality industry. I do work for a supplier. It's my day job. So I talk to hotels, restaurants, even the retail shops daily. But I was also just down in New Orleans. So me and a group of friends, close friends, we travel around and we go see some bands together. We're big fans of Interpol. Well, I was in Austin when I saw or reached out to Ali 4 years ago. We were watching Interpol at UT campus and then went over to Suerte and White Horse and Uchi. Wow. And it was a great weekend. So that's what we do. We like to go eat, drink, watch bands. So this trip was planned 2 years ago. I want to say it was October of 2019. It was supposed to be New Orleans. Something happened. We stayed. We came to Denver and had a great dinner at Tavernetta. It was supposed to be in 2020. And then obviously COVID. So we've had this on the books for a while. Out of the blue, May 1st, everybody collectively just said, screw this. Let's book flights. We're going Memorial Day weekend, even though to buy a flight on a holiday weekend is not very smart. It's like going to the new 4-star restaurant on a Saturday at 7 o'clock. You're not going to get the same quality of food and service as you would on a Tuesday at 6. Right. I like doing everything off, sideways, off days. So anyway, we booked the flights. We did it. It was a blast. We had some great food. We even ponied up and did a Saturday brunch, jazz brunch at Commander's Palace.
I gotta ask. I mean, because New Orleans is my favorite city.
It is.
It's city. Just in terms of just the eating, it's just so unique. The most unique experience in America. Just give me at least the rundown of just the names of the restaurants. Where did you go?
Oh, so we started, as soon as we landed, we checked in. They had to wrap up some work. They're also in the wine industry. So they were wrapping up some stuff. We went straight to Acme because we stayed at the J-Dub on Canal. We walked around, crossed Canal, made a left, and we're at the Acme for oysters and grilled oysters, all this stuff.
Yeah,
Gulf shrimp.
The Club Royal.
So New Orleans, there's a lot of great food cities. New Orleans is one of my favorite. Hidden side note, tangent, whatever. Chicago, I think, is one of the greatest food cities that doesn't get recognition. New Orleans gets, kind of put in this box that it's just Creole food, but it's not.
Right.
You got Gulf shrimp, you got Gulf oysters, you got great hotels, you got people from all around the world, great sports team. There's a lot of money in New Orleans, and they create lots of great food. So we went straight to Acme. We did Sylvain's. Irene's cuisine was still there, so we were thinking about doing Irene's, but we went ahead and I thought about this, knowing what's going on in Denver. I'm like, it's Memorial Day weekend. We're not going to get reservations. We're not going to just be able to walk in and say, hey, I want to go to dinner. So we booked these the first week of May. So we did Commander's Palace. We tried to do Brennan's, but we pushed that one. We did Sylvain's, which is, I can't remember what street it's on, but it's in the quarter. And we did Cane and Table, which is a part of a restaurant group that I know the sister of the owner. It's the only reason I knew about these. He was always at the Alex's lemonade stand in LA, where they raised money for cancer, for kids with cancer. Great event. He was always there, Neil Bodenheimer. And he owns a bunch of bars and restaurants. So we booked Cane and Table because we could walk. We did everything walking.
Wow. Did the restaurants change their configurations? Did you notice a visible change in how they were seating people?
It's kind of funny you mentioned that. So there was a footprint change early in the pandemic, especially when restaurants were allowed in certain states and cities, depending on local regulations. We're allowed to start letting people back indoors for indoor dining.
Okay.
Overall footprints change. So let's call it capacity. They were at 50% capacity. Let's call it a staple 50%. And then as vaccination rates went up, you're allowed more and you're allowed more. There was a constant theme to everybody I've talked to as the reopening was coming, is that restaurants realized a few things. And the restaurants that thought of doing a better product and providing better service all said the same thing. We're never going to go back to full capacity. We changed the footprint so that everybody has a little more room around them. We get better service. The kitchen doesn't get crushed. The food quality is higher. We have less comps. We have less complaints.
Wow.
And that's universal.
That's really cool.
Now, I haven't been to a lot of the Midwestern states. You know, I'm talking about a very finite focus point. So California, New Orleans, Colorado. But it seems to be a theme. The other theme is they can't hire people, especially hotels. Hotels are way understaffed. Yeah. They're having difficulty getting staff. But what isn't difficult is the number of people who have decided we are going. We are going out to dinner. We are traveling. We're going to go. They might not be going to Europe yet until they start opening vaccine passports or whatever. But they're traveling to New Orleans, Denver, San Francisco, LA, probably Chicago. They're going to the great cities for nice hotels and nice dinners. And we learned a lot. There were some fun things we learned. Acme wasn't a part of that smaller footprint, because I think their quality of service and quality of food was already dialed in. They've been there forever. They know how to deal with tourists.
Those Acme, like Commanders, Brennan's, old school, historic. Is Acme the same?
Acme's also historical. I think that Blacksmith Place in Lafitte might be the oldest bar, maybe in the country, but definitely in New Orleans. Acme's up there, but Acme's known for oysters. And the first thing, so we were going to get 2 dozen Gulf oysters. I grew up on Gulf oysters. My family was from Alabama. So every summer we were in Mobile to drop my grandmother off.
With her cousins. I thought it was Mobile. Whoops.
Yeah, Mobile. So I grew up on Gulf shrimp and Gulf oysters as a little kid. So I love them. So we're going to get 2 dozen oysters. And the bartender says, the quality of the oysters are not to our level. So bingo, there we go. So we're not serving them right now.
Wow.
So we could only get the grilled oysters, which almost as a Rockefeller kind of thing without the spinach.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. I love them. I enjoyed them. But my friends who this is their place when they go to New Orleans, they've had higher quality, and they said it's probably because the quality of the oysters in the Gulf were just a little bit lower. That's why
Yeah.
they're not serving, blah, blah, blah. Acme had on a Friday at 1, we were in line for 30 minutes to get in. By Saturday night, we tried to do seafood again because we wanted more fried shrimp and Gulf shrimp. It was an hour and a half to 2.5 hour
Whoa.
wait at 3 p.m. at every seafood restaurant we tried to get into in the quarter.
Wow.
So you got to figure you're standing. I mean, what kind of social distancing is even possible? You know what I mean? I mean, it's New Orleans. You walk around.
I'm double vaxxed. I think most people who are food people, travelers, they're going to be vaccinated people.
Sure.
You know, you want to protect yourself. I never felt, it felt totally normal to stand in line and wait and be inside a bar.
Yeah.
I could see early on in the pandemic, before anybody knew what was going on, being in a bar with elbow to elbow, having shots of Fernet. I could see how it would spread pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. It's just like the movie, just like Contagion, straight up. Boom. Monkeys. Like
You know what's funny?
Now, I'm not sure, how it would handle in a restaurant surrounding, but we don't have to get into that because we're in the backside of this and we're reopening. So restaurants are overwhelmed. They need our support to begin with anyway because they had a rough year. They bore a pretty sizable brunt to the pandemic, including the workers. But there was another theme that early on, as it was reopening, the consumer was very nice. Don't worry about it. It took 45 minutes for my entree. I'm okay. I'm just glad to be back. Then it was slowly, a month later, it was, so what's going on? How come you guys can't really get this, dialed in? And a lot of restaurants have told me now there's no patience anymore.
Yeah.
The consumer wants this fixed. They want the same service and they want the same time on the food, all that stuff. So I think there has to be a certain level of patience with us as consumers going into these restaurants. The hotels I've stayed at a lot of hotels in the last month. I think the level of service in hotels is, you're getting quality service at most hotels, and that's really has continued. It's the restaurants that need a little bit of our patience and support. I don't know if they're going to get it. We'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
when I clicked on
when
I clicked on the Acme website, the first thing that came up is that they're hiring. Like it came up before even getting to the webpage was that they're hiring.
Yeah, and that's every restaurant has a sign in the window, hiring, please.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was driving around Austin, and there's a little joint here called Taco Rito, which is almost like, I mean, it's I want to say like a pretty legit carnitas taco spot. You can get it by the pound, corn tortillas.
Nice.
But oddly, they have a drive-through, which one would never associate with anything like, authentic or street Mexican food. But it is. This place is not that expensive, right? I can get like a pound of carnitas, get the whole kit for like 20-something bucks, right?
Nice.
Sausage.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it's affordable. They had a sign up, hiring $17 an hour, and I'm like, dang, that's respectable. I mean, across the board on my end, when I talk to restaurants, certainly in Austin, the big thing is, and I've started to go out really starting right around my birthday, May 4th. It's okay. You can send me a present later. I went out to places and there were people there, but when I talked to the restaurant, people who were working there, they're like, yeah, we are understaffed, and that's across the board. And what's been interesting about all this stuff is how some people just have turned away from that industry. Because what's interesting about the restaurant business, whether you're a waiter or a bartender, it's a little different if you're a career chef, harder to walk away, but certainly not impossible. I think a lot of waiters and bartenders are kind of like, hey, hang on. How long have I been doing this? What else did I want to do? And certainly in places like LA, where people are chasing other things, right? Yep. Had other ambitions, other goals. I read an amazing story. I forgot, I don't know if it was like the LA Times or something, but this person was just like, I came here to write, and now I can't bartend. And they were making like $75K a year, which certainly is survivable in LA, right? You just went straight into writing and like was able to focus on that and like generated a book deal, like did he win the lottery? No. Did he take this time to kind of reset and kind of go a different way? Yeah. I just came back from traveling, right? We took a little quick jaunt to St. Petersburg, Florida, which we feature on Cheap Eats. And I have to tell you, like, a lot of people won't think of like going to, of all the places to go on the Gulf, like New Orleans. People don't ever think about St. Petersburg. I don't think. I will tell you, when I went, I was completely blown away by the food there.
When you went for your show? When you went for your show, or when you went this week?
I went the first time for Cheap Eats, and then I went back, just the fam, my wife and son, over for a little midweek trip
last week.
And when I went in 2018, one of the chefs took me to all these restaurants, and it was like the most Anthony Bourdain moment of my life.
Wow.
I just went into these restaurants, met chefs, took a bite of food, and then went elsewhere. And it was interesting, like throughout all the run of Cheap Eats, throughout the entire run of Cheap Eats, whenever I'd start a conversation with the chefs, I'd be like, what's going on with this food scene now? What's been happening? There's been a lot of just renewed, there's a bit of a renaissance with food. And what you talk about with these dynamic food scenes in places like Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, New York City have reverberations. You know what I mean? And then that spreads to other places. So in St. Pete, they were like, why can't this place be cool? So a whole generation of people were like, okay, well, I'm going to make some beer. You're going to stop serving, kind of like cheesy pirate-themed seafood platters. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're going to do more than grouper sandwiches, which are delicious, by the way.
Yeah.
And still, when I was there talking to the staff, they're like, it's so hard to get. There's restaurants that actually survived. But they're like, we don't have the staff that we need. And I know for us, we're kind of like new to coming back and stuff like that. And it's weird because something you said that was so fascinating, Steve, was, the new model of the restaurants. Let's just serve less. Let's let's raise the bar a bit, right? And let's not burn everything out. That happened to me as a person like eating at home. Saving money, eating better, just basically aiming for more quality. But what's so funny is you go back out, right? And then you go back to that old mentality of like, what's going on? I mean, I sat down. It's like you sit down and you're at a nice restaurant, which we went to. Granted, we had our kid, right? But, there's this whole thing of like, okay, the expectation of what service is, and that hidden like meter of like, okay, this is starting to get worse. Nothing's bad is happening. You know what I mean? Like you just talk to a person and go, hey, can I get this food or whatever? But there's such a expectation on both sides of how everything's just supposed to be like boom, boom, boom. I am not the Queen of England. You know what I mean? We don't need this to run like some flawless, like, musical theater choreographed dance. You know what I mean? And it is unfortunate because I think there's something in the mentality of just like, I want the very, very best stuff and I want it super, super fast. If you want fast, go to a fast food restaurant. You know what I mean? But soon
it's
you
like
get
that Venn diagram. Have you seen the Venn diagram where it's like fast, good, cheap, and it's like, you can pick 2 out of 3. You're not getting all 3.
I mean, it's it's funny but it is interesting. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Like things are going back, and I have regrets. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like all of a sudden it's like, I'm just gonna start shredding through more money. Is it really gonna get better? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's like you go back into this hustle again. Like. I don't know. I look at all of it and I'm kind of like, I kind of, there were a lot of things that worked out for me. You know what I mean? And I think it was about slowing things down. And you do have a good point. You really, if there's some advice you can take from this, like going out for dinner on Saturday night is putting you at a disadvantage. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. You know,
yeah.
That's when people can go out. That's when you can get a sitter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The game is rigged. I don't know what to tell anyone. The game's rigged. That's all I got to say.
You know, I want to go down that St. Pete rabbit hole maybe on the next episode because we all don't have to go to the same cities. I had my St. Pete revelation 5 years ago when I went to visit a friend, and she lives down in Gulfport. St. Pete is a very cool city. And people who are chefs in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and LA, and they decide, holy crap, I'm not making any money. I'm never going to buy anything. I'm now almost 40. You know what? I'm moving home, and I'm going to open up something there.
Yes.
And the quality goes through the roof immediately.
I literally had that conversation with a guy from Cheap Eats in Indianapolis. The guy was in Chicago hustling. And what happens is this. It's like, yeah, kid, you can't. You're barely keeping your head above water. Right. And then you go, hang on, this guy's a master charcuterie guy. He makes top shelf, some of the best, salamis and prosciuttos and all that stuff is out of Indianapolis. And the thing is, when the guy was doing this stuff for restaurants in Chicago, where was he sourcing this great, well-raised pork? From Indiana. Freaking Indiana. Really? So there's almost like a reckoning of like, wait, you want farm to table? We're in Omaha. You know what I mean? All you have to do is break the Cisco supply chain. Break that business of because it's like you also want it right away because it's still back to the same old thing of I'm here, I want everything on the menu, and I wanted it 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, right? There's an unfortunate element to the dining experience. I'll just say it in America. I wish I had somewhere to contrast it with, which is like, I want it. It's that Venn diagram. Venn diagram.
So let's save. I want to do this secondary city conversation for the next episode.
That'd be cool.
Because I think what we're talking about is really important. One, I don't know if maybe the regular consumer thinks that restaurant people just make so much money that they don't really understand how they can't make a really good life in major cities. And
I think there's a disconnect.
I know a lot of chefs, when I was in the industry, they live 4 to 6 people in a one place so they could afford to pay for that rental.
Right.
Yeah.
I know Eater has discussed this a lot. I don't sit anywhere on this conversation because it's really up to the industry. But Eater has brought up a bunch of articles on raising the quality of the life of a restaurant worker through better pay. Yeah. That the industry is going to have to go through a reckoning of itself. That really comes down to the individual restaurants, etc. I just think as a consumer, we have to have our own reckoning and expectation of patience. I call it the Great Reopening because somebody else called it the Great Reopening. Maybe, I don't know, who knows, New York Times, whatever, Eater. The consensus is that this next decade is really going to be a second roaring 20s. Everybody with money who has been saving and stuck at home is going to go out, and it's going to continue, and it's going to snowball, and it's really going to be pretty exciting. But patience at an establishment has to be paramount. And remembering that a lot of these workers were not working for 6 months or more, depending on what market you were in. Some cities in the Midwest, I think, were probably reopened a lot sooner. What I miss and what I'm already enjoying about going out is because patience in a restaurant comes easy to me. I started in the restaurant business at 15 at a fine dining Chinese restaurant in Cincinnati. I was a busboy. I had a separate career, but I kept going back to restaurants, and then ended up in the industry again. So patience is very easy for me at a restaurant. I don't really blame anybody, but I miss 2 hour leisurely dinners. There was a greediness portion pre-pandemic, I think, with a lot of places that they just wanted people
In
in
and
and
out.
out.
Yeah.
We got so many
Yeah, yeah.
people that want to come to our restaurant.
Yeah.
Let's turn and burn. Let's do smaller. You know, you're going to be there for 45 minutes. You're going to order everything at one time. Hospitality went right out the window. They were bringing fish courses after the beef courses, and the salad was showing up 45 minutes later, and you were leaving.
Yeah.
There's some changes I think that are going to happen in the whole
I mean, the
system.
prices of food are gonna have to go up, obviously. That right? I mean,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
you know, I would say from driving around LA, so I'm in Pasadena area, and there's this street, Colorado, that is, you know, runs through the whole town. It runs through Eagle Rock. It runs through Glendale, and I drive along it a lot. And the dining experience that I see has totally changed. It's becoming more European in the fact that everyone has to have outside, right? Like you said, 50%
Yeah.
inside, and so they've eased a lot of the parking restrictions, and so they're making Old Town Pasadena is like less car-y now. There's more people walking around. There's the restaurants converted the parking spots now into outside dining, and I think it does create a more leisurely experience. And I think this the outside dining thing, you know, LA, I feel like everyone was crammed inside, and for such a beautiful city
Yeah.
to have these restaurants opening up now and having so I do think the experience is hopefully gets better, and then that will hopefully elicit the prices going up, you know, and getting the workers a better lifestyle. Um,
I, I don't see anything wrong with every plate, you know, going up $2 a plate.
sure.
We all enjoy going out. We don't have to go out to dinner every single night. And I think maybe people realized that during the pandemic
Yeah.
that they could learn how to
I
cook.
think people
learn how
learned. A
to
lot of people learned how to
entertain.
cook, or are getting
Yeah.
better, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. I think with any tragedy, and I think this pandemic was a great tragedy for the restaurant industry, both for the worker, the owner,
And the
the
places that had
restaurant
to shut
itself.
down, just the very unique places that we lost. It's just if you
Mhm.
run down the list,
And
it's very sad.
Eater, I think, has been running a
Mm.
list nationally of everything that was lost. So, with great tragedy comes great reflection, comes great change. I think that change probably is going to come out of this. And I love that idea of the European style. You're sitting outside, it's more leisurely, it's not hurried, it's more patient. Maybe smaller restaurants will start sprouting up. I think we also have to remember all the breweries, all the wine tasting rooms. It wasn't just restaurants that were hurt, hotels were hurt. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I think you go through the tragedy, you go through reflection, change is coming. I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this. There's a lot of great people in that have been in the restaurant for a very long time, you know, from Alice Waters, Bobby Stuckey, all those people who probably are going to set the tone for the new vision coming out of this. All of us are going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
Ali said, we're not the Queen of England. We can be a little more relaxed in how we approach everything. I will say down in New Orleans, even with, you know, the long wait times and a little difficult food not arriving right away,
Yeah.
everybody was super patient.
That's good.
Maybe because everybody was on vacation, they were like, yeah, whatever, I'm on vacation.
Well, I was going to say, now that people can
So,
work from home, and now that we're getting a little more fluid with our office and job expectations, like maybe people can start going to restaurants in the middle of the day more. You know, maybe
mhm.
that concept, or like like I said, European, but this could go anywhere outside, is, eating at different hours of the day rather than our capitalist, everyone can only eat dinner at like 7 or 8. And so the restaurants are packed and the service goes down and the quality of the food goes down. So it's like, if we're working from home and going and eating at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, that'd be great. Just get the money pouring back into these restaurants. And
I don't like giving away secrets, but my favorite time to eat is like 6 o'clock at a restaurant, 5:30, 6.
Yeah.
Granted, Ali brought it up. I don't have kids. A lot of people have to think about sitters and etc. And growing up, my parents loved going out to eat, and so did my grandmother, my mom's side of the family. They took us. So we grew up going out to eat at nice restaurants, diners, whatever. 2, 3, 4 years old. Maybe people will start bringing the whole family. They'll bring their kids. They won't need sitters. I don't know.
We've been, we did that when we went to this phenomenal restaurant in St. Pete. When we went purposefully early, we had a reservation at like 6:15. I feel like in looking at all this stuff, it's like it would be a crime not to look at what's happened and go, well, what are you going to do differently? And in my case, as a diner and a consumer, and we've started to do it, and I absolutely enjoy it. I will just as soon on a Friday night at 6:30 p.m. run to the grocery store and throw a meal together like it's a Tuesday night and save our restaurant experience for, like, God's honest, $100 person experience, because I just don't think, everything counts. It is expensive. And I actually believe I'm getting more value going to a, more expensive restaurant for an experience that I'll simply talk about, absorb, relish, and really eat food that I do not do at home.
You can't do it at home.
Right.
That's right.
I'm not doing this at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that should guide probably all the things of when you go out to eat, because that's when you realize it's special. And I think also to add to that, like, when people kind of ask me over the years, like, oh, is that place really worth it? And I'm like, you really want to, like, if you're going out to eat, you're spending more money than it would take for you to eat at home. Flat out, there it is.
Period.
So, educate yourself. Choose wisely and see if you'll like it. You know what I mean? My guess is if you spend a little bit more time going, well, this sushi is omakase and it's chef's choice, and I've been reading good things about it. Spend freaking $250. You'll probably have a meal that will be far more memorable than, a couple California rolls.
Right.
Just go for it. Don't nickel and dime yourself. Just, I don't know. That's my new mantra with it.
That's that. And just in case we're about to wrap up, that's another great point. There's another thing I've noticed. So I'm not going to call them fine dining restaurants. Let's call them bistro style food restaurants that we all go out to probably more often than fine dining or elevated dining, whatever you want to call it. Those restaurants have seen a different path going forward and are rotating to more of a fast casual situation. The food still stays elevated. They go with lower staff. You're not getting a server. You're ordering, then you go up and pick your food up and go to the table. You might go to the bar to get your drink. They don't have to employ as many people. They get to pay all those people a little bit more. You can categorize it as a fast casual restaurant, but in essence, it is still a bistro with a more relaxed experience as a diner. I still think a part of the ecosystem that we all forget is the person, us, the diners, have to be invested in the experience. We can't just be demanding and walk in and say, don't you know who I am? The classic LA story. We're still a part of that ecosystem of the restaurant and the hospitality with our own expectations that maybe need to be a little more relaxed, depending on where you're going.
Steve, you mentioned earlier something about saying that, sort of they're not ready. And you've mentioned, say there's a workers issue, hiring workers. There's an issue with customers and patients. was there anything else that sort of qualifies as they're not ready? Is there a supply thing going on? Is there any of that other stuff?
No, well, there are some supply issues within, the alcohol industry across the board. I'm assuming there's probably some food supply issues, especially in that Cisco chain that Ali was
Mm-hmm.
talking about. I know some meat processing plants had to be shut down during COVID
Oh, right.
because the whole place was
Right,
infected.
right.
Which is
You know,
gross.
yeah. Well, we're going to see. I think there's also going to be a supply chain change.
Mm.
Maybe more chefs who are coming from Chicago and moving back to Indianapolis are going to contact the guy down the street that raises only 10 heads of cattle and 10 pigs
Yeah.
and has a little boutique farm, or maybe more people will get into boutique farming.
Yeah.
And they'll have direct connections to a handful of restaurants. Long time ago, I worked at this awesome, I love this place. It was a retail wine shop, wine bar with a small kitchen that a chef from a high-end Italian restaurant came and changed the entire menu.
Nice.
It was amazing place. But there was some farmer that drove up from Kentucky every morning with his old pickup truck loaded with fresh produce that he had just picked.
Wow.
Came from his farm. He looked like some hippie from the 60s that had gone out and created this farm in Kentucky a long time
That's
ago.
great.
And he would only sell to 5 or 6 restaurants, most of them higher end. Chef Ron Weiss had gotten this guy's name from the Italian place he worked at. So he sold there, it was higher end. He brought him over. And it was just, the menu was created out of basically what was in that dude's truck.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, they had a very simple menu, pizza of the day, blah, 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 blah. And whatever was on that pizza really came from that dude's truck that morning. And they would go, this is what we're putting, chalkboard menu. Servers had to know it. There were no menus we really handed out. I loved it.
It's really hard to beat that. It's so, you just really go with like whatever's in that truck.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what LA does, because there's certainly an element of that missing from LA. There's not, there are obviously a crap load of farms out here, but it's just a big city, so it's going to be interesting.
Alice Waters apparently just announced she's finally coming to LA to open a restaurant.
Wow.
When I read stuff like that, it's just a big old it's kind of like Eater itself. It's like just hype articles. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much farm to table happening. It's like it's just like having Martha Stewart on Chopped. You know what I mean? It's just slapping a celeb name on there, and all of a sudden, like, that baby gem lettuce is just going to taste a little bit more gemmy and baby-y. What is it? It's just funny, like, I'm guilty of it as anybody, but it's like, this, this big news. I'm like, well, thank God, because Los Angeles has not had any fresh produce on their menu. Because the Santa Monica Farmers Market clearly hasn't been utilized.
Right.
Years.
Very good point. That secondary city conversation's the next episode.
Really cool.
We have to talk about this.
Oh, God.
There's a lot of great stuff.
That was the entire theme of Cheapy. Was the flip of it. It was kind of under the radar a little bit. But it is all about second tier cities, without doubt.
Wow. So the great reopening, it's happening. I know LA is June 15th, I think, and so we're about 10 days away from then. Very interesting observation, Steve. I love the concept of them saying that they don't want to do full capacity. They want to do better service, raise the stakes for everything. That's really cool, and I hope people pay for it and with a smile on their face, right?
It's so funny because to me it's like it's already also expensive. It's like you just commit to the fact that you're having something that's special and not something that's like a utility. Dining out, even if it's like fast food, isn't like water. You know, like you shouldn't just expect it. Like it's something that that is special. It deserves a little bit more respect. You know, amazing how you can get disrespectful.
Someone cooking for you and serving you is not something you get at home.
No,
None of us would be able to afford a chef and a server at your house. So when you go out, it's meant to be special.
That's the best way to think of it, right there.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this one up, gentlemen. Episode 9, cool. ETDT.
Wow.
Steve went to New Orleans, and I did, and I didn't, and I'm very upset because that
ate a bunch of charbroiled oysters without.
What a great city! What a great city!
Final thought on New Orleans. I was not aware of this. I was at a hotel yesterday here in Denver, meeting the new F&B and somebody else that both had just come from New Orleans. They worked for really nice hotels in New Orleans. They told me a hidden secret that I've never ever known about New Orleans. Okay. The Westin on Canal starts at the 11th floor, and it has 2 floors to ceiling windows that you sit and look out over the quarter. You see the bend in the water. You see the entire thing laid out in front of you. I've been to New Orleans a lot. I've never, ever known about that. Wow. And he said people would specifically stay and come to the Westin because their parents, all the history of their own family, experiencing that moment inside that hotel. Wow. I never knew about it.
That's cool.
So, hidden secret.
Tip. All right, let's sign off, gentlemen. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Have a great day.
Sayonara.